Good afternoon, everyone. I am Zhao, and I'll be a leader for Group 2 today, and I'll be talking about Experiment 5, Internal Combustion Engine Performance. So a quick outline of what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to start with the objectives of the experiment. Then I'll go on to what is the apparatus we'll use to conduct our experiment. I will then go on into some thermodynamic principles that's going to be involved in our experiment. That's going to lead into what are the results we could expect from our experiment, and lastly I'm going to finish off with what are some uncertainties that is associated with the experiment we're going to be conducting. So the objective of this experiment is to obtain various engine parameters under different loading conditions. That is when the engine is running under constant speed with a variable load, and when the engine is running at a constant load with a variable speed. So this is the apparatus we will be using today. Here is the 13 horsepower engine. It is a single cylinder 4-stroke spark ignition engine. It is connected by a Lovejoy coupling to a dynamite dyno. I'll talk about that a little more later. But that dyno is connected to a torque horn. That torque horn we'll be using to measure the load of the cell from the engine. So a spark ignition engine operates under the Otto cycle. So basically, you have the intake stroke, the compression of the air-fuel mixture, and number 2 here we have the spark from the spark plug, which leads to combustion. And here we have the power stroke when the combustion expands the cylinder. And from 4 to 1 back, we have any leftover heat is released, and we go back to 0 where the exhaust is pushed out before the cycle starts all over again. Here I'm showing you more of a realistic real-life cycle of the Otto cycle. You can see that it is not as sharp between the different stages. It's more of a smooth curve from each stage. And you can see the exhaust stroke and the intake stroke aren't going to be exactly the same. Here I'm showing you the Otto cycle on a TS diagram, and you can see that at the compression and at the expansion, that there's going to be entropy generation. That makes the cycle irreversible. So what is a dynamometer? So a dynamometer is used to measure the power output of the engine. The output shaft of the engine is connected to a fan inside the dyno. The dyno is then can be filled with the amount of water you want. And the more water you put in the dyno, the more load the engine will feel. So as the engine spins the fan will impart the force onto the water, and the water will impart the force onto the casing of the housing of the dyno. That force can be measured with a load cell right here, you can see. And that is how we measure like the torque output of the engines. So the ideal performance of the engine operated under different conditions. So the load is actually the power taken from the engine. By opening the throttle of the engine, you increase its power. However, the maximum power available at full throttle depends on the RPM or the speed of your engine. So here I show a quick correlation between torque and power. We know that power is equals to work over time, and work could be written as force times distance. So force is torque over radius, and the distance over time portion could be written as radius times 2 pi times the RPM. So through some quick algebra, we get that the horsepower of an engine is equal to the torque times the RPM divided by 5,252. So here I am showing you the ideal torque and horsepower versus the RPM of the engine. We can see that eventually that the horsepower will outtake the torque production of the engine, and why is that? Is because of this equation right here. So engines are designed to output torque at a certain operating range, speed range, and if you exceed that range, the output torque will decrease. However, temporarily, the RPM increases faster than the decreasing torque, so the power continues to increase. As you can see, that this would tend to happen from this equation right here. So what are some expected results from this experiment? So I expect that the horsepower and torque versus the RPM graph, which I showed on the last slide, will very closely resemble the ideal case, though not as smoothly. I expect that increasing the load at a constant speed will increase the power, but not increase the torque. And I expect increasing the speed at a constant load will increase the power, but not torque. It's basically flipped. So we could also get some theoretical results. Those are equations that was given to us in the lab manual. So we could get stuff like the mechanical efficiency or the power theoretically. So some uncertainties that you can expect from this experiment. I expect that there will be some fluctuation in the load and speed when they're supposed to be constant. I expect that the intake and the compression is not going to be the same every time. And the fuel octane is not going to be exactly what the octane is supposed to be. And lastly, I expect that the combustion stoichiometry is going to be slightly off just because the intake is going to be slightly different. That's all for me. Any questions? Yes?
Can you go back to the auto cycle slide? Now, this is a one-cylinder engine, so my question would be, like, if adding more cylinders would make the right-hand, the real graph, look more like the ideal case, or vice versa, or anything like that?
So he asked if adding more, he asked if adding more cylinders to an engine would make this a more realistic graph of the auto cycle look more like the ideal case. I do not expect, because they are not, cylinders are not connected to each other, they operate independently. So if one cylinder is intaking, it's not causing the other to intake at a specific amount. They intake at their own independent rates. Cool.
Yes. I got a question. So this dyno, how similar is it to one that would be used on a much larger engine?
So he asked the dyno we're using. He asked how close it will be resembled to a more powerful engine. Right? I expect that the only difference would be that you will increase the size of the dyno. Because by putting in more water, you put more load on the engine. So a larger engine has more power output. So you would need, so there's like a physical limitation of how much water you can put into a tiny dyno. So you would just get a larger dyno. That's what I expect. Thank you.